Hey, it's Larry Lursey. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at Luminar 4, specifically the Portrait Enhancer feature of the software. We've looked before kind of at an overall of what it does, and today we're going to fine-tune into just for portrait type work. We'll take a look at what it does with skin, just other kind of basic face retouching type things for improving a portrait, and see how it works. If you'd like to download a trial and follow along with me, there's a link in the comments to tell you how to do that. You definitely want to make sure you hang on until the end, because I'm going to give you a bonus tip at the end that will help you use the software even better. If you haven't done so already, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you'll know when we have more content coming up. But if you're ready to go, let's roll the intro. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop, and we're going to use this image as our test to see how Luminar works on a portrait. Before we get going, as with most plugins, it's always good to work on a copy of the layer, in my opinion. So I'm going to drag this down to the little plus, and I'm going to double click and rename this. We'll just put LUM right now for Luminar. But this way, if we decide we've done too much of an effect or whatever, we just don't like it, we've got the ability to either turn this off or bring the opacity down and still have our basic layer here behind it. So I always try and work on a copy like this. So we've got that ready, we've got it selected. We will go up now and open up Luminar 4. Okay, here we are in the software, and I'm not going to go through all of the tools that Luminar 4 does. I did a video on that a while back, and I'll put a link to that if you'd like to check that out at the end of the video. We're just going to look specifically at some of the portrait type things. So first thing you might want to do is you've got this looks button up here that you can turn off or on, and it's going to give you a whole bunch of different looks, which are basically Luminar's presets. If yours doesn't say portrait here, you want to go through and you see you've got all these different ones. Go ahead and select portrait if you want to see the same thing I'm looking at. And so I always find it's nice to just kind of start by running through, hovering over some of these and seeing what the ready-made preset already is. And some of these are pretty nice as they are. That one's pretty good. So you got a whole bunch of options here that you might be happy with just right off the bat, but we're going to kind of work from scratch. So you're going to come over here to the little smiley face, and that's going to bring up your portrait menu. We're going to start with the skin enhancer, the top one, and then we'll move to the portrait enhancer. Now, I've got this zoomed up here to 100 so that we can see what we're working with here in the skin. And she doesn't have a whole lot of skin problems, but we can smooth things out a little bit and just to run the software through the paces. The first thing we'll do, let's go ahead and blast it all the way to the top, 100%. And you can see it gives it kind of this soft, dreamy type feel. What's interesting about this is you can still see texture through here. I can still see little lines and pores, so it's not that it's just completely blown out everything like a blur, like a Gaussian blur would do. It's still kept some of this texture to it, so that's nice. I think it's still too much of an effect. We'll dial it down to 50 or so. Let's go 60. Just to smooth things out a little bit. You can do the little toggle off and on here if you want to see before and after. There's the before. There's the after. It's definitely smoothing things out a little bit. You've got the shine removal. She doesn't have a whole lot of shine on her face, but sometimes you'll have the really shiny forehead and things like that, and that will come in handy. You've got this box here for AI skin defects removal that you can click, and it will generally go through and find, like if there's a large blemish or something like that, it will take care of that for you. You just have to be a little careful turning it off and on a couple of times just to make sure that it doesn't take away something that you wanted, that it somehow interprets something as maybe like an earring or something like that. It thinks that it's a blemish and takes it out. So you have to watch for things like that. But that's pretty good on our skin right there. And let's jump down to Portrait Enhancer. By the way, at any time we can click on this little window pane here and see the after and the before if you want to kind of compare where you are. And we'll just leave it on. We'll just leave that pushed to the side. So we're going to run through some of these. We don't need all of them on her, but we will try out most of them. And Facelight, as the name implies, again, we'll move it up all the way to see what it does. It's just lightening that face area, which hopefully you've done a good job lighting the face anyways, but this does do a kind of nice job of bringing a little more attention to the face. And we'll just slide that up a little bit, give it a second to work. I think that looks nice. Red eye removal, she doesn't really have any red eye, not a problem. Eye whitening, if you learn nothing else from this video, don't use eye whitening on anything. Don't whiten your stuff when you're doing stuff in Photoshop, or if you do very little amounts of it. What people tend to do all the time is they will go through and move this all the way up like that, and it just gives you these glowing white eyes that just look unrealistic, and no one has eyes that look like that. So don't go over the top with the eye whitening. I would recommend probably you don't use it at all unless you've got someone that just has really dark eyes for some reason. Now the eye enhancer is kind of nice. It's going to pop the color in those eyes a little bit. So I tend to go a little more aggressively with the eye enhancer because I just love how it looks. There's our before and after. Really is bringing out some nice texture here. Let's let it process again. That little texture right there in the eye really brings that out. I think that looks nice. Dark circle removal. Again, she's got a little bit of dark under here, and we can push that all the way to the side and see what it does. And it lightens things a bit. Personally, I'm a fan of repairing that in Photoshop. I don't like this dark circle removal as much, but we'll apply a little of it. Slim face is a really interesting one, and again, it's one of those things you're only going to use it in certain circumstances. I'll show you what it looks like if we move it all the way. And it definitely slims her face. It kind of looks distorted, especially when you go that far. But certainly you can apply small amounts and get a more natural looking effect. Let's kind of do before and after here. But again, I don't know that she really needs that. We'll just leave on a little bit just for the fun of it. Enlarge eyes, as the name implies. Another really easy one to abuse by going too far. As you'll see when this processes, it kind of makes it very freakish, which we don't want. But it's not bad to make the eyes look a little bigger. The problem you have with slim face and the enlarged eyes, I'm going to turn both those off on this one. The problem with this is, especially for using my method of having a layer on top, is when you go to try and blend those layers, you're going to have different size eyes, different size faces, and it's going to make it look weird. So if you do enlarge eyes or slim face, you're not going to be able to go back later and fade that layer without running into some problems. So just be aware of that. All right, improve eyebrows. Usually looks pretty good. What it basically does is kind of fills in a little bit and darkens. See the before and after on this. So just bringing out a little more texture in there, which works nice. And then we get to the lips. You've got saturation, pretty self-explanatory, trying to bring out that color that we already have there. You can redden them a little bit. Only problem with that is I find that women generally have it the color they want it, and if you go changing that color too drastically, they're going to say, well, if I wanted red lips, I would have worn red lipstick. So I don't generally do it other than adding just a little bit to give it just a little bit of pop. Same with the darkening. Teeth whitening, not an issue here because we can't see her teeth. And those are basically the two things you're going to use with a portrait. Now, one of the nice things you can do in Luminar is once you've got this all set and you think that's what she needs, you can go in and save this look. And we will just call it sample model. And you can see down here it's going to give us under our user looks sample model, and that will give you the ability to go back and apply these exact presets to another image. So if you've got several shots of her, maybe different poses, you decide, well, I like this look but I'm not crazy about the pose, and you pick a different pose, you'll be able to come through, hit this sample model, and it's going to bring up these presets which in theory should look good on the next image as well. And of course you can always go back and tweak things afterwards, but it definitely has a nicer look as we look at the before and after. So we've saved that as a preset, called it sample model. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And there we go. Now, for extra credit, if you can remember, go up here and rename this to maybe even Luminar sample model. Then you know it's your Luminar sample model preset. This comes in super handy if it's a week or two later, and especially if you've got tons of those looks or presets created and you don't remember which one you used. This will allow you to go right to it, and you could even use the person's name on the preset if you wanted. But that's going to give it to us on a separate layer so we can look at the before and after. So that's basically how you would run a portrait through Luminar. So there you go. Pretty cool software. I think it does a really nice job of getting you a lot of basic looks really quickly, and you can fine-tune them from there. The presets work really well, especially if you dial in the style that you really like. You can go back to it really easily, which is really nice. One little tip is I would recommend that you always, once you do all that retouching, go ahead and save it. Let it sit overnight and on a different layer, and then come back to it the next day and look at it and decide whether you've gone too far and maybe play with that opacity a little bit. Sometimes when you've been working on it for 10-15 minutes and you kind of get where you can't see the forest or the trees. So it definitely helps if you will just save it, come back to it the next day and take a look and see whether you've applied too much, and if so, just dial it back a little bit. But that's pretty much what you want to do with it. If this looks like something you'd like to try, you can use the discount code LarryPhoto, and that'll give you $10 off, so you can get it at even better price than what it normally is. And I hope that helps. Please leave a comment if you have any questions or have any ideas for other things you'd like me to talk about, and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.